Welcome back to another episode of Living in Denver. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you two areas near Denver that I feel right now are the best areas for both fixer-upper properties and also value-add opportunities. I'll be sharing the differences between value-add and fixer-uppers and just sharing these two areas that I feel right now are great spots to keep your eye on if you're looking for either of these two for a real estate opportunity. But before we get started, my name is Adam. I'm a licensed realtor here in Denver, Colorado. I love making videos just like this one you're about to watch, but I really enjoy just connecting with viewers like yourselves. So the phone number, the email, all that info down below. I'm the one that answers the calls. I would love to chat with you and just learn a little bit more about your situation. Whether you're looking to move 6 months or maybe you're not even really considering moving right now, I'd still love the opportunity to connect. I guarantee there's a few ways that I can provide value to you today, regardless. So let's go ahead and get started though. Again, this video is all about two areas near Denver that are great options for both value add and also fixer upper properties here in Denver, Colorado. All right, so as I said, we're going to be talking about fixer-uppers and also value-add properties. So there is definitely a difference between these two, and I'm also going to be doing a follow-up video to this one where I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on value-add, because value-add definitely has some differences when it comes to identifying areas that are really advantageous for extending onto your existing property or potentially building an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, which would be separate from your primary here on the same property though. So there's definitely some codes, restrictions, stuff like that in different areas all around Denver. So in the follow-up video, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on those value add specific areas that I feel are really good opportunities. But today we're going to talk more about fixer-uppers. So what are the differences between fixer-uppers and value-add properties? So first, we'll talk about fixer-uppers. Typically, these are in a little bit worse shape. And when I say worse shape, a lot of times it's just a home that's very old, maybe in the original condition from, the 1920s, 1930s, up to maybe even the, 1960s. But kind of, a home that's 40 to 50 years old, has not had a ton of upkeep or preventative maintenance done on the home. So it's pretty much in its original condition. It just really needs to be, brought all the way back down to the studs and also maybe even, adjusted some of the layout of the homes. So the focus with fixer-uppers is really just getting the home back up to a more livable condition, as well as just being more marketable for the buyer's demands in today's climate. So, definitely today versus 50 years ago, buyers are looking for a lot different types of features in their homes. So there's different things like that we're going to talk about with fixer-uppers, and I'll go through all of that here in a second. But before I do that, just so you understand the difference between that and a value-add property, value-add is typically homes that are already in a livable condition, but it's more about a matter of finding different aspects of the house that can be improved to significantly increase the value of the home. So the focus here will be more on enhancing the existing home's features, potentially adding on additionally to the home to make it more modernized, as well as even some energy efficiency upgrades. With fixer-uppers, they're usually priced at a lower price point because they haven't had any of these updates done yet and they are still in a more original condition. So the two areas that I'm going to share with you today are both places where I feel there are a lot of these types of homes. And the reasoning for that, a lot of the time in Denver, is these are families and people that have been living in the same home for 50 years or longer, and they're just at that point of their life where they're starting to move on to assisted living or maybe just downsizing, just going through different life events that are requiring them to sell their homes. We're seeing a lot of that right now in these different parts of Denver, specifically the two that I'm going to share with you right now. So the first area is going to be Lakewood. And Lakewood is located just west of downtown Denver. As soon as I finish talking in this segment, I'm also going to be sharing with you a screen share where I'm going to go onto my website and I'll actually show you a few homes in Lakewood that kind of match what I'm talking about here with these fixer-upper and value-add properties, just identifying what those might look like. But with Lakewood, I think one of the reasons why this is such a great area to focus on for fixer-uppers is because of this, what I was just talking about. A lot of people are moving out of Lakewood because of just the age that they're getting to. Lakewood also offers relatively lower pricing on some of the homes in different areas as compared with Denver proper. So, if you're looking for more of a project, maybe at a lower price point, just getting your foot in the door, I feel like Lakewood definitely is one of these areas that has a lot of opportunity to do so. And as I've shared in other past videos, I love Lakewood's location. Since it is on the western side of downtown Denver, you're just that much closer to get up to the mountains, as well as just, I think, better scenic views of the Rocky Mountains from pretty much any location in Lakewood. And it's just super convenient. Some really good highways close by with Highway 6 that can easily take you in and out of downtown Denver and straight over to I-70 to get up to the mountains. And also, it's just this part of town that I feel like not as many people for some reason have identified and are really focusing on, especially people that are out of state that are moving to Denver. So, there are a few other kind of buzzword areas around Denver like Sloan Lake, Highlands, even like Littleton or Ken Carroll. There's some of these bigger areas that are just more popular and more, I think, people are more aware of them. I think Lakewood is still a little bit lesser known, which is, again, a great opportunity if you're looking for homes maybe at a little bit lower price point and maybe with a few less eyeballs on them. I also think that when looking for fixer-uppers, there are 3 types of homes that are very common in Lakewood, and that includes bungalows, and these are typically homes that were built in the 1920s or 30s, usually very small, around 1,200 square feet. Typically, you'll find like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, usually no garage, or if they do have a garage, it's detached. So bungalows are pretty common here in Lakewood, as well as mid-century ranches and also split-level homes. And these are also really good to identify, split-level homes. Split-level homes are actually, if you had to rank the different types of homes, always the number 1 most popular is going to be a ranch style. And I think that's because it applies to the largest pool of potential buyers. People are getting a little bit older, a lot of times prefer not to go up and down stairs. So definitely ranches are the most popular. One of the not as popular is a split level. And a split level just means that when you walk in the front door, you have a little landing area, an entry, and then you can either go up or you can go down. So a lot of people don't like this just because you inevitably are going to have to go up or downstairs more frequently. However, these are great opportunities, sometimes because you can figure out a way to eliminate the split level or to just get creative on how it's designed, just to make it a little bit more modern feeling and not as much of an eyesore as the typical split levels that were built from back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. Another reason I think that Lakewood is a really good option is just because of its strong rental market. So if you are looking at potentially an investment property and looking for this fixer-upper or value-add opportunity to be more of an investment property, there are a lot of great areas in Lakewood for rental properties, and part of that is because there's a few different schools that are nearby. So before I go into where these are, I want to just make a point that, all of Denver, it varies from area to area, from city to city when it comes to short-term rentals. And unfortunately, a lot of different areas now in Denver either have moratoriums, which means that they no longer are accepting new applications for short-term rentals. However, Lakewood is one of the few areas, and I want to make sure you guys do your own research depending on when you're watching this video, but Lakewood has been an area that's a little bit more liberal on their enforcement, where sometimes there are areas where you can still own one short-term rental. But what's more common nowadays is a lot of people are leaning into a way to kind of avoid the restrictions by doing what's called a midterm rental, which just means it's 30 days or longer. And this is a great opportunity for anywhere near a campus or a school. So that's why I'm specifically talking about in Lakewood, there's 2 different schools that are a really strong rental market. And that'll be Red Rocks Community College and also Colorado Christian University. So neither of these are large universities like CU or CSU. However, there's still obviously a lot of demand for midterm rentals. So definitely, I think that's another reason why Lakewood is a great spot to be checking out. There's also some really popular lakes and just parks in Lakewood that have gone incredibly up in popularity over the recent, I'd say, 5 years. And one of those is called Bear Creek Lake Park, and that's really close to Red Rocks Amphitheater, and it's just off of C470. And man, I tell you what, I was driving by there maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I looked over at there's this really cool beach. It looks almost like, you're on the actual beach somewhere. And I bet there was no less than 100 paddle boards out in the lake, people kayaking, dogs swimming, people swimming, just a ton of activity. So if you are somebody maybe moving here from out of state, this could be a great place for you to just meet some new people and get your roots a little bit set here in Colorado. So definitely some really cool opportunities if you live in Lakewood, such as that Bear Creek Lake Park, and also just a lot of other smaller parks throughout all of Lakewood that I think they do a really good job with upkeep and just very nice, again, scenic views of the Rocky Mountains from most of Lakewood. And then the last thing I'll say before moving on is just, I really am big on understanding the geographic location of Denver. And what I mean by that is everything that's west of downtown is very limited in size, where the opportunity to continue to grow and expand and have new construction and new developments is limited because you've got the Rocky Mountains on the west and you've got downtown Denver on the east. So you're kind of stuck between the two. And Lakewood is one of the few areas near Denver that's like that, where it's really in the most, in my opinion, opportune place. And again, since it hasn't really caught on as much as some of these other areas that are closer to downtown, like Sloan Lake, Highlands, some of these other areas I was talking about earlier, after those eventually just completely hit the ceiling, which I think they already have in some respects, they're going to start looking elsewhere, further out, just a little bit further out from downtown Denver. And Lakewood is pretty much next up on the list. And that's why it's such a strong place to consider. And also just such a good centralized location with easy access pretty much anywhere you want to go. All right, guys. So what I wanted to do is just take a couple quick minutes just to show you my brand new Adam Sells Denver website that has a ton of great resources, specifically when you want to search for any neighborhoods and just learn a little bit more about specific parts of Denver. So you just go to my homepage, which is just adamsellsdenver.com, and you can click on the upper left here. What you can do here is check out what's known as neighborhoods, or you can search for properties directly. But if you click neighborhoods, what I want to show you here is if you scroll down, I have this interactive map. You can find any part of Denver here and learn more about those specific areas. So when we talk about first Lakewood, if I click Lakewood, you can see where specifically Lakewood is located. So as I said earlier, it's just west of downtown Denver, and it's a pretty large area actually. You can definitely see that there's areas down near Morrison, which is where Red Rocks Amphitheater is, and Bear Creek Lake Park, but also has some significant area a little bit more to the north of there. So very large just footprint when it comes to Lakewood, which means there's a lot of different neighborhoods, a lot of different styles of homes, different opportunities. If you scroll down though, you can also look at market reports for Lakewood, the top schools in the area, just some other local advice, and then also just go through and search for homes. So as I was saying, there's a lot of homes in Lakewood that are, a little bit more in that 1940s to 1960s mid-century style of home. And some of these are going to be single-family ranch style homes, but you are going to see some two-story or split-level homes as well. But if you just scroll down, you can see there's a lot of different inventory in Lakewood. This would be an example of the 625,000 square foot home of some of these homes that used to be in the 400s are now creeping into the 5s and 600s. But this would be an example of a home that could be a great option for a fixer-upper or a value-add home. As you can see, there's this pretty large driveway on the side that could be, down the road, maybe built into an actual detached garage, maybe even with a mother-in-law unit up above, depending on the zoning requirements or restrictions in this part of Lakewood. That would just be one example of looking at a home like this and seeing what kind of opportunities exist. You could also see that, the home has some, a little bit of landscaping done, but definitely could be improved. Looks like the roof's pretty old. This vertical siding here could definitely be, replaced with something more modern and clean and a little bit more updated. I do love homes that have brick, but maybe this could be, a little bit more modified and modernized. So this would just be an example of a home that, could be a good option. As we scroll through here though, there's a lot of different homes that kind of match that style. This would be another one, this $599. So you have some different options like that. So one other thing I wanted to show you though is if you scroll down further, this is where you can get that full market report. Just click continue with Google or continue with Facebook. You don't have to type in your info manually. And then also different schools that are in this area, different restaurants that have high ratings within the Lakewood area. And then I also just have some different blog articles on Lakewood. So that would just be an example for a few different resources that I think would be really valuable for you to check out. So do that and let me know if you have any questions. All right, and then my second area near Denver that I think is a fabulous spot to check out for fixer-uppers and value-add opportunities is going to be Wheat Ridge. And I've definitely had a couple other videos on Wheat Ridge, and that's because it's near and dear to my heart. I actually grew up in Wheat Ridge, so it's one of the areas that I know better than almost anywhere else around Denver. And I am, without a doubt, very, very confident that this is one of the best spots for fixer-uppers and also for those value-add opportunities. I actually just sold a house about 2 or 3 months ago in Wheat Ridge, so I was spending a lot of time over there. And actually in the neighborhood that I grew up in, this home was very, very close to that. So I was able to just kind of see some of the old stomping grounds that I spent a lot of time in as a child, and just seeing that so many of these homes that I walked by on a daily basis to school and just, was all around these neighborhoods as a young kid, a lot of these homes are still the same. And in fact, a lot of them still have the same owners. And these are homes that were built in the 50s, even the late 1940s through the 1950s. And just the demographic of the owners of these homes are people that are in their 70s and 80s. And, inevitably, they're eventually going to need to either downsize or figure out, what to do in that next chapter of their lives. So this is that time right now, over the next 10 years, I would say, where Wheat Ridge specifically is going to see a lot of opportunity. Now, Wheat Ridge, it's also in that same area, similar to Lakewood, where it's got the mountains to the west and downtown Denver to the east. In fact, Wheat Ridge, if you're just driving on some of the most common roads in Wheat Ridge, like 32nd or 26th Avenue, and you head east, you're gonna dead end right into Sloan Lake, Highlands, and then downtown Denver right afterwards. So another thing I love about Wheat Ridge is you can get to some of these different parts of Denver without ever getting on a highway or even a busy road. So, if you've got maybe younger kids that are getting up to that driving age, what I love about Wheat Ridge is you can have people that are in that age bracket of families, young kids just learning to drive, and I think rest a little bit easier knowing that they're not going to be getting on these very, very busy, packed highways like I-25, I-70. They might get on Highway 6 a little bit, which is similar to Lakewood, where that takes you west and east from downtown Denver out to the mountains. But other than that, there's really a pretty easy way to avoid any highways when you live in Wheat Ridge. So Wheat Ridge is just one of these areas that I think is kind of lesser known, but is definitely on the cusp of being the next hot area within Denver. As I said a minute ago, I grew up in this area, and some of the major intersections I'm seeing completely being revamped right now with newer grocery stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts. You can just tell that there's this new revitalization of the area, and they're seeing new retail centers, just updates to all of the different shopping around these neighborhoods in Wheat Ridge. And there's just a lot of homes now that unfortunately used to be significantly less expensive, and now I'm seeing homes that are in the $700,000-$800,000 range that haven't even been fixed up yet. So I think the window is very short here for Wheat Ridge specifically, but also for that first area, Lakewood, that I told you about earlier. Both of these, I think, are definitely time sensitive. We really got to act quickly over the next few years, maybe 5 to 10 years at the most, before these also will be completely, just the opportunities will be far and few between. One of the other reasons why I really love Wheat Ridge specifically is you're going to find a lot of these older mid-century homes that were built in the 50s and 60s, typically a ranch style, might be a 2-level, but most are ranch styles. But Wheat Ridge is a farming community from back in the day, so a lot of the lot sizes are quite a bit larger than anywhere that you would find on the more eastern side of Denver, and even for some parts of down south of Denver in like Littleton and some of those areas like southeast Aurora. So I just think with Wheat Ridge, you've got these larger lot sizes, which if you can get creative and just really do a good job with fixing the exterior of the home up as well, you're going to see a lot more just interest in the home if it comes time to sell it. When it comes to fixer-uppers and value-add properties, definitely fixing up the exterior of the home is very important, but I will just mention that it is uncommon to really get a complete return on your investment with the expense of exterior projects. And that's not always true, but just to be aware of that, you don't want to be putting a ton of your budget in the exterior of your house. Be a little bit more cost sensitive and mindful of where you're putting your dollars on the outside. But with these larger lots, you can get really creative and definitely find homes where these older owners have just, gotten to the age where they can't take care of these larger properties anymore. So a lot of them have kind of gone a little bit, to the dilapidated state, where somebody that's maybe a little bit younger, or at least just somebody that's still pretty active and motivated, and especially to save money, willing to do some sweat equity, meaning do some of the work themselves. I think that Wheat Ridge is just such a great spot because you have these bigger lots and you can really get a lot of just improvement done with very little money spent, especially if you're willing to do some of the work yourself. And that's what I've done over the years with a few properties. And I think that is just a very good starting point if you're maybe not the best with, tools or just some of the more complicated things like interior updates. Not to mention that a lot of times people that are, buying homes that have been updated they're going to be able to tell if it's been done professionally or kind of a hack job from somebody that maybe is just trying to fix it up themselves. When it comes though to exterior projects, I think there's a little bit less of a learning curve for most projects where you can still get some of this work done yourself if you're just willing to, get your hands dirty and maybe sweat a little bit. So just something to keep in mind. All right, and then similar to the video I shared earlier on Lakewood, just wanted to do a quick one as well for Wheat Ridge. So again, just go to my website, adamsellsdenver.com. On the upper left, you can click here, these three little lines, or you can just scroll down to this interactive map that I referred to earlier. If we click this time, Wheat Ridge, we're going to just take a quick look at some Wheat Ridge properties and just give you a better idea of where Wheat Ridge is. So as you can see here on the map, it's a little bit north of Lakewood. So Wheat Ridge is just the area bordering Lakewood. Lakewood's to the south of Wheat Ridge. But again, just to the west is all of the great mountain access on I-70. And just east of Wheat Ridge is downtown Denver and Sloan Lake and Highlands and all those other really popular parts of the Denver area. So if you scroll down, you can just see though that there are a little bit higher prices in Wheat Ridge than there were a few years ago, similar to what I had mentioned with Lakewood. So, Denver is definitely continuing to be popular, and the harder it is to find homes in the really popular areas like Highlands and Sloan's, all those areas we were just talking about, they are, starting to creep into Wheat Ridge, Lakewood, these areas that are just west of there. So, 5 years ago, these homes would have been a few $100,000 cheaper. And I do think that there still are some great opportunities out there, especially with homes right now sitting on the market longer than they typically do, allowing buyers to be a little bit more strategic with where they're offering, putting in offers at. So just as an example though, if you scroll down here, I'm just looking at this with you guys in real time, but we'll just take, for example, this one here, 4320 Lamar Street. Again, you just have to log in really quick. And this one here would be 500,000 ranch style home. So like I said, 1950s brick house, nice sized lot. Investors and do-it-yourselfers, this property has a lot of potential, hardwood floors. So this would just be an example of one of these homes that I think, for the right price and depending on what type of projects you want to do, could be a great option. Another just little tip for you when you're looking for fixer-uppers and value-add properties, this home is a 3-bedroom, but only 1 bath. So having a structural engineer come out during the inspection portion of being under contract, this could be an opportunity to have, another inspection done to see, what kind of load-bearing walls exist in the home. Do you potentially have an opportunity to expand on the back of the house to add maybe a second living room or a larger extended living space along with another bathroom for both guests as like a powder room, but also making it a full-size bath for that second and third bedroom to use. So, you can get pretty creative here, but there's also some pretty simple filters you can put in to your home search to really identify some of these easier. So anytime you're looking for homes as fixer-uppers, one way that I always like to start is putting in only 1 bathroom, seeing what comes up, and then going from there. So this would be a good example, guys. So, brick home could definitely be painted, updated, obviously new window coverings, just a fresh coat of paint, maybe some vinyl laminate or some sort of new flooring, or just, refinishing this nice hardwood floor. So this would be an example. You can also tell that the pictures here, really aren't the most professional. So there's a good chance that maybe they're, trying to sell this home themselves, or maybe they're just really not doing a very good job listing the home. As an example, as you see, there's a vacuum in the middle of the picture here for their kitchen. So obviously they're probably not getting as much attention on this home as they could if they had a little bit more professional photos, maybe a little bit better, qualified agent representing this property. So I think this is just examples again of seeing this kind of stuff, realizing that these are visual cues that you could be a little bit more strategic with your negotiation with what you're offering if you are going to put an offer in on this home, as well as just what kind of opportunities there are to fix it up. So that's a really good example, guys. But one last thing before we move on, if you do go back a screen just to your search listings, as I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of great resources here. So if you want to download any of these free guides, I'll actually show you this way. If you click the 3 dots here, and there's a button here that says helpful guides. If you click that, this is where I have all these other great resources, buyer guides, seller guides, guides for credit repair, and even for new construction homes. So all these are free for you to download. Just check them out. And again, if you have any questions at all about any of this stuff on my website, feel free to reach out. We'd love to help you. All right, so just one last thing before we close out this video. So as I shared with you guys, the two areas I think are great to check out, Lakewood and Wheat Ridge. But regardless of anywhere, whether it even be in Colorado or not, anywhere that you're ever looking for a fixer-upper property, a couple tips I want to share with you before we close out the video. And the first one is definitely it's worth spending a little bit extra money on the front end during the inspection phase of being under contract, of having a structural engineer come out and just give a second set of eyes that's in addition to a typical regular home inspection that you'll normally get when being under contract and going through the different stages of purchasing the home. So definitely having an extra $500 to $700 in your budget to spend on a structural engineer just to get a really good professional understanding of what you're walking into if you buy this house. You know, one of the most common ways to really add value to homes is to identify places, for example, a kitchen that is very closed off and older and just small and cramped, but you have maybe a smaller living room right next to it. If you can identify with that structural engineer that maybe that wall in between, that party wall, if it's not structurally load bearing, meaning it's not holding up anything like the ceiling joists or the roof, anything that is structural, you have the opportunity to potentially take that wall out and just expand that space and make it a much more modern, open floor plan layout, which is what's so much more popular today in Denver, and I think pretty much anywhere in the country. So with having structural engineer, looking at the property, stuff like that, you can identify and really then make that very educated decision on whether or not to move forward and actually purchase the home versus, maybe realizing that some of these ideas you have won't work on that specific property. So another thing I want to share with you is just understanding that you really need to always be budgeting for unexpected costs and just always having a little bit extra in your budget for things that are going to come up, which is inevitably going to happen. I typically recommend to have at least 10 to 20% of your total budget. Make sure you save 10 to 20% of it for these unforeseen type things that might come up. And that way, at least when you go through the project and you're getting your different things done that you want to improve, when something does come up, you've got that money and you're not stuck scrambling, trying to figure out what to do until flipping the home and selling it, or maybe just getting it to a state where you can then move into it. So just definitely keep that in mind, 10 to 20%. And then the third tip is just understanding, any local zoning, residential type laws or covenants, anything that might exist in the neighborhood where this home is located. Definitely something that's very popular right now is these ADU units, which is an accessory dwelling unit, just a separate unit that you can put on the property and have as maybe like a 1-bedroom. Sometimes you can put water and electricity out there. That's going to require more permitting and definitely a specific type of zoning for that area. But just any ideas you have like this, definitely make sure that you know what you're going into before buying the home and potentially, being in a position where it's just not going to make the money that you hoped it would. When it comes to just really identifying what the highest ROI improvements are to be made, and ROI, if you don't know, is just your return on your investment. Two of the ones that are always just, I think the safest bets are going to be both kitchen and also bathroom renovations. So I've noticed in this Wheat Ridge area, for example, recently that a lot of the homes that I've toured are still in the original condition from the 1940s, 1950s. Very, very small bathrooms. The shower is, literally, maybe 36 inches by 36 inches. Just a different style of home that we are not used to today and are definitely going to be a sticking point for a lot of buyers if these types of features are not updated. So you're definitely going to find a lot of unfinished or at least unrenovated bathrooms in Wheat Ridge and Lakewood, and also the kitchens. So just having that in mind and just realizing that those are two areas that are very heavily used in the home, and because of that, definitely have a higher ROI than some other parts of the home. So just keep that in mind. For example, finishing or updating the front porch, or maybe just a second or a third bedroom. Stuff like that is still important, but not as important and not getting you as much ROI as kitchens and also bathrooms. And also with just the technology of today with these different types of energy efficiency, definitely putting in your budget some money for updated appliances, updated fixtures, new wall switches and outlets, and just having the home really to the standards that people have today. And that's not only just for technology and enjoyment purposes, but also for safety. So when you have some of these older homes, the types of wiring that was put in the home, the types of piping in the walls. There's a lot of things that are older, and some people just are a little bit more concerned about that stuff, when it comes to having a leak in their house or potentially radon or even asbestos. So just really understanding that the safety and also just this updated energy efficiency are also things that buyers are definitely very keen on as they look for homes in today's market. All right, so I think that's all I got for you guys today. Definitely could go way more in depth. And again, I'm gonna be doing a follow-up video to this one that's more specific on value add. And that's gonna be more about areas where you have less restrictions, less covenants, and areas where you can potentially put that second dwelling on your property, or maybe areas that are a little bit more friendly when it comes to short-term vacation rentals. So stay tuned for that video. It'll be coming out in the next week or two. But for this video today, as always, my name is Adam. I'm a licensed realtor here in Denver, Colorado. Do not want you guys to miss out on a ton of free resources I have on my website. The link is down below in the show notes. It's just adamsellsdenver.com. And I've got free guides for buyers, for sellers, for buying new construction. And even if you're maybe somebody that doesn't have that great of credit right now, but you're wanting to start preparing for pre-approval for a loan here in the near future, today is when you can really focus on improving your credit score. So I've got an entire credit boosting playbook available for free as well. All that stuff is in the link down below, and my phone number, my email, all of that info as well. So we'd love to connect with you, jump on a quick Zoom call and just learn a little bit more about you and how I can provide value to you today, tomorrow, or whenever that exciting day comes here in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Looking forward to connecting with you guys soon. And as always, like and hit that subscribe button. New videos coming out every single week. I want to make sure you guys are the first to receive them. Until next week, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you then.